Thanks, Gina. Good morning / afternoon, everybody. Are there any other urgent announcements that people would like to share now before we jump in? Okay, go ahead, Frank.
Oh, I didn't even raise my hand yet. You knew I
yeah. I saw the other Frank raise his hand.
There's more than one of us, Frank.
I didn't see that yet. So you go, Frank.
Okay. Yeah, Gina, if you wouldn't mind sending me a copy of what's going to be transpiring at AGU. I had a conversation with a couple of folks, Mark, geez, my brain has gone south. A couple of folks who have had some dealings with the cops in the past. And so I had a conversation with them about cop-related activities that may be happening at AGU and in San Francisco. So, yeah. Anyway.
Nice. Sounds good. I'll shoot you an email.
Okay, I'll let Katie go next.
Thanks. I also put this in the chat. We're doing a webinar next week, so check it out for our new mental health pages that we're launching. I'll put the link to those in the chat as well. So helping educators and anyone address mental health aspects of climate change, but especially targeting, those who work with young folks. We have new pages to help guide people to do that, and we're doing a webinar to go through those pages and help people understand the information in them next week, kind of around Earth Day, trying to do that. And then I'll tease, we don't have it quite set up yet, but we're working on it. We're going to have another sort of mental health event in May, and that's actually going to be a little bit more geared towards clean network folks than educators specifically, but we're going to have the climate mental health network has put together a video from youth talking about their experiences with mental health and climate change, and so we're going to screen that video and have a little panel discussion, and we're coordinating with another group to have one of the students as a panelist and another expert in this as a panelist. So anyways, I'll let you know more about that when I know about it, but just so you're aware, it's going to happen in mid-May. So watch out for that. And then this one, share with your teacher networks, especially. Thanks.
Katie. All right, Noah Frank, you can go.
Is that my new name, Noah Frank?
Yeah,
that's kind of funny.
That's my new nickname for you. Yeah.
I appreciate that. So we have our first listening session for the 2023 update on the Climate Literacy Guide on Monday, noon Eastern time. And we have 150 people registered right now. We know that won't be the actual number. And then I gave you a link to the collection where all of them, we're kind of still building out all the other listening sessions. There'll probably be about 10 of them total before the end of May. So please promote it, connect yourself in here, and join us in this process. So thank you all. Looking forward to it.
Quiana Frank. And Quiana is Sup'ik for thank you, which leads me to wonderful guest. I'm really excited to be having Valerie join us today. I think most of you know me. If you don't, I'm Colleen Fisk, she, her pronouns, and I live on Dena'ina Elnana in Alaska. And I work for the nonprofit Renewable Energy Alaska Project, or REAP, as the education director. And for the past 2 years, I have been working with Valerie Toney on learning more about the Sup'ik culture and incorporating that into our work. And so I'm excited that Valerie gets to join us here today. And if you all can introduce yourselves, I think some of you already have already, but if you haven't, please do introduce yourselves in the chat. Valerie can get even more of a sense of the cool folks who get to jump on this call. And Valerie, this is recorded, so other folks watch this later as well. So Valerie, want to introduce yourself?
Waka. Waka is not just a greeting, but it's an actual mental check-in to see if we're on the same level. Waka means that you are ready to talk with me, or you are ready to listen to what I have to say, and your mind space and your head space is present. Usually it's something that it's a question. Waka, are you mentally prepared to be in this zone? So when I say waka, the correct response would be waka. So waka. Mhm.
Waka.
Waka.
Okay.
Maya hunga, irusa ka hunga, kipaklo ka hunga, kagana ka hunga, mangya ka hunga. I was raised by my grandparents and named after 5 elders that had passed on just prior to my birth. So I inherited all these names, all these elders' names. And these are the names I get to carry forth into this world, in this life. So as soon as I wake up in the morning, that's how I get to greet the day. That's my introduction to this world every morning, is to know that according to my mom, I am the latest representation of all my ancestors. That previous to me were 500 generations. I get to every morning reaffirm that. And normally we do it with a grounding song. Today I'm working at home and I don't have space to stand up and go through all the emotions with you. But we'll get to sing the song later. It's just my way of claiming my space, my purpose on this planet, in this world. So tamana umyaklugu. Keep that in the forefront of your mind as we go through a discussion. So I'm going to ask that there are specific rules to this type of engagement. We call them the Kashkik rules. Kashkik means that it's a meeting space. And the only rule when you gather as a community like this is to not hurt anybody's umyo. So your goal is to never hurt anybody's mentality. So keep that in mind as we continue with this discussion. Oyana Kali.
Anna, Valerie. Part of what we want to talk about today as part of this discussion is introducing one of the core principles of Yupik and Sup'ik culture called Yuraq, and then some examples of how I have been working with Valerie and others to incorporate Indigenous knowledge and wisdom to decolonize the curriculum that I work with, AK Energy Smart, and also from Valerie's perspective, the indigenization of her work and her curriculum. So that's kind of the overarching, where hopefully you guys can put questions and comments as we go along. It's not a huge group, so be watching the chat and thinking about that as we go, but we also are planning to leave time at the end for further discussion and questions after we kind of talk about some of the main points that we wanted to hit. So Valerie, if you can give a little bit more information about Sup'ik and Yuraq and Slanaq. These are some of the main principles that we have talked about. I'm trying to put them in the chat as we go so that you guys can see one of the spellings that they use. There are many different dialects of Yupik, but hopefully this will give you an idea of some of the spelling kind of pronunciation as we say some of these unfamiliar words. Well, Valerie, I'll turn it back over to you.
Oyana. Wango tayo pikni mani nunak ni wital ngagod. It's my job to show up as my Indigenous self, and as I introduced myself earlier, you noted that I'm not alone in this world. I carry at least 500 generations, according to my mom. of my ancestors. And I've often been asked, how does it feel? So there, immediately my mind goes to, how does it feel to know that I have 500 generations that stand behind me every time I make a move, every time I wake up in the morning. It feels like it keeps me accountable, makes certain that I live by that rule of trying not to hurt anybody's umyak. And if I do, then I clear the air and give plenty of opportunity to not hurt anybody's umyak. Tamana umyak klubu. I'm asking you to keep that in mind, keep that in the forefront of your mind today. In our Yupik world, you always start with yourself. And throughout your life, how many of you remember how old you were when you had your first memories? Like maybe I was 3 and 3 years old, and I was raised by my grandparents. So my grandpa, who is my dad, went outside to go pump stove oil in the village. And I saw these huge snowflakes falling, the first snow of the year. So that was my first slang. And then of course, that realization hit. And then it went away. And then I'd slang it again, and I'm in a boat ride. I'd slang it again. Those are levels of awareness that we call being part of your environment. You are slowly becoming a part of your environment. Within that, you have yourself. Within that inner circle is the land of our ancestors. And not everybody made it to today. So when I say that, I mean that the land of our ancestors is always expanding. Not everybody made it to today. It's a really hard realization, but it's actually kind of comforting to know that my ancestors dwell in that space. And any type of grief, any type of trauma that I might experience pulls me into that space. And a lot of people experience that as when you're in deep grief, you're not walking on this world. You know, it takes like a whole year to grieve for somebody that has passed because you are pulled into that space. And then, of course, the outer layer is the whole universe. The way that we describe that world and that we see that world is through Yuraq. Yuraq means to not only drum, sing, and dance, but Yuraq also is our Yupik spirituality. And to be able to train your mind through drumming, singing, and dancing, to be able to go and expand your world and to have no barriers between you and your ancestors, between you and the universe, is a very freeing, very awesome way of living this world. You can see that it's very simple to live here, but when you have so few rules, of course, you know it's hard. It's a lot of gray area. So this is where our elders come into play, or a lot of the talk of our elders comes into play. With the advent of boarding school, we don't get to hear our elders talk. Instead, we're being recited, different religious manuscripts instead. So that is becoming, it's kind of getting lost. Except when we Yuraq. So tamana umyak lugum. Colleen, I hope I was able to
Yes.
define. Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't want anybody in limbo.
That's okay. I also put Yuraq in the chat as well, so they can
Yeah.
see it. Yes. And I think when Valerie and I first started working together, we're introduced by a mutual friend, and I said, you know, do you know anybody who would be interested in working with me? You know, who is a knowledge bearer who'd be interested in working with me and working on this. And so I got introduced to Valerie, which was wonderful. And first started working together. And I asked her, I was like, okay, well, let's talk about energy, right? Because that's my world, is thinking about energy. And when I did that, you know, obviously it's not just one thing. We have to be thinking about this holistically, about everything. And so that's why I appreciate, you know, Yuraq may not seem like a direct connection with, you know, potentially clean energy and climate change, but it is very much want to think about our place, where we are in this world as part of that. And so working with Valerie, we started having these conversations, and you briefly mentioned Slunok, or environmental energy. And that's one of the things that we talked about a lot, as well as thinking about this in terms of some Yupik traditions, knowledge, and wisdom, and how we can think about that through the lens of any type of education. And of course, through my lens of thinking about it of energy education. So would you talk a little bit about Slunok, a little bit of kind of environmental energy?
When you talk about Slangat, you're talking about different levels of awareness, and throughout your life, of course, you become more and more aware. You're using more and more of this world of the universe. It opens up to you with certain realizations. That's what I learned in the Kazakh. The Kazakh is a space. It's a community hall. You can view it like that. It's a safe space. Of course, there's just a few rules. One of them, not necessarily a rule, but a practice, is as you enter into the space, you ufchuk your feet. Ufchuk means that you tap your shoes before entering into the space. Tap your shoes outside so that you're not tracking in any snow. That also means that you leave all the preconceptions of this world outside the door. When you enter with an open mind. You're ready to receive this information. What you are doing is actually entering into a space where your elders are, where they're gathered. In order to get in there, you have to have had your first dance ceremony or some sort of introduction. And so there's one way to get into the world of our ancestors, or into the world of where our elders reside, and that is learning one lesson. So you heard earlier that there is one rule: you don't hurt anybody's umya. There's only one lesson to learn in this world as a Yupik person. Can anybody venture a guess what that might be? You can put it in the chat if you want, or you can blurt it out, certainly. There's only one lesson. That's the rule of engagement, is do no harm. So you don't hurt anybody's umya. That also means on my drive to drop my daughter off this morning, that I don't throw a fist at the person that's driving crazy down the road, right? You don't want them to, gain that anxious energy from me. So the one lesson that you must learn as a Yupik is to learn how to share. And with the ingenuity and forethought of my ancestors, we turned that lesson of sharing into a ceremony. So you're brought into the Kazakh. It's your party, it's your potlatch, but note that it is you that is bringing these gifts. So when you have these gifts to disperse, that is a public showing that you are learning that lesson to share. Always homemade stuff. It usually takes about a year to gather all the necessary stuff to give away, the potlatch items, gifts to give away. So it's not too taxing on the family. And these are just everyday household items, axes, shovels, the Yuraq fish traps, nets, dry goods, and some extra food, as in, so when my daughter stands up this year, I get to pass out some canned salmon. That's where we're at. Knowing that that is the center of our world on this planet enables us to access our elders and their knowledge. That is also where we gather to be able to access our ancestors and note that it's not, not a seance. It's not something that's set up like that. It's a transference of energy. When you give so freely, you're not bound here on this world. Not in the trauma sense, if you understood what I was saying earlier. Not in the trauma sense where you are being pulled to the outer fringes of this universe, but instead we are flowing freely in the what we call the universal energy. That's where we want to be. It's peaceful. You're not gonna get there by laughing your way there. It takes an enormous amount of mental energy to be able to get even close to where you're residing. It's so hard to English some days, and right now I'm struggling to English.
Doing great, Valerie.
To be able to experience that universal energy kind of means that you're at peace. That's how I view it. It's always how I've heard it, so that's how I view it. It's very peaceful, it's calming, and to be able to get there and do that every day is, my goal. That's my goal every day. Did you understand me, Colleen? Did I describe slang?
Yes, I think in our with the time that we have, I think you've described it as well as you can within our own time. Valerie and I have hours and hours and hours of conversations about these things. And of course, I'm just scratching the surface, but hopefully that kind of gave you a snapshot of some of the things that we've been talking about and the way that I have worked to try to, obviously incorporate this and adjust my way of thinking, especially my own umiak and not injuring others' umiak. Obviously, I take that personally to heart, but also considering in my own work, really thinking about this, where are ways in my curriculum that are, or in any of my work that I do, not just like in lessons that I write, but any of the work or outreach that I do, how I can be better about thinking more holistically about our environment and not just thinking, really narrow on this one thing or really in a Western view, but how do we incorporate views like thinking about Slanak in this way, thinking about the Kazakh, and thinking about these values of the people who in Alaska, are, especially when I work in rural Alaska, thinking about these are the ones who are the majority folks who live in this community. And so making sure that I am doing this work in a way that is more culturally responsive to their perspective. One of the things that we did together, Valerie and I, is I'm going to put this link in the chat. It's a longer video, I think almost 20 minutes, so can save that for a time when you have to look at it. But we worked together with Valerie and her dance group to record her in a Kazakh So in that community hall, that Yupik Community Hall, which is at the Alaska, what is the Alaska Native Cultural Center? There we go. I think that's what it's called. Heritage Center. There we go. Alaska Native Heritage Center. They have different Alaska Native buildings, models that they have built on their property, including this Kasrak. And so, oh, it says it's been removed. Boo. All right. Well, okay. I will get you guys another link another time. Been struggling with all the little minor things that keep needing to be fixed on it. And I thought we were finally there, but apparently not. So, but we're able to do this recording with Valerie and her dance group in a Kasrak with this traditional song. And it was just really cool. I will send it to the email list, Katie, absolutely. And so we're able to do this and work on this together. And again, you know, that we're thinking about making sure that this energy is more of a holistic view. You know, my work is in energy education, but that we have these resources to be able to share. I'll try not to get down too much of a rabbit hole of like language revitalization and thinking about that in terms of place and, you know, decolonizing. But that is all part of it, right? All of these things are part of it and working together. And so working with Valerie has been really rewarding, but also, of course, improving our own work and what we do. Another example of this is working on a lesson that we're calling Energy Perspectives. And so it is an activity, and we've trialed this for the last couple of years with different student groups and teachers we have a fictional Western Alaska community that has to make energy decisions about their community. You know, should we get another diesel power plant? Should we build a hydro project? Should we add more wind? You know, like what is this decision that we have to make? But making sure that we are being inclusive and culturally responsive of all voices. So making sure, like, worked with Valerie on thinking about, okay, Valerie, if this were a Western Alaska community, who are some of the people who should be there? How should we be, you know, talking about at least one representation of their voice? And so students then get assigned different role cards. And so working with Valerie to make sure that those are actually representative. And so like one thing is we had an elder is a very important person and role in this activity. And we just had like a clip art icon of somebody with a cane. And Valerie's like, well, a cane is not really something that you would see in an Alaska village. Like elders are not using cane. You know, this is not something that they use. And so this is that sort of thing where it may be really small, but if we want to make sure that we are being representative and more accurate of something, that we want to be doing those things. So those are the sorts of things that we have been working on as part of our curriculum work and improvement. Valerie, can you talk a little bit about, from your perspective, how this partnership has worked, or what are the good things for an effective partnership of, you know, like in our case of like curriculum development, working with Indigenous knowledge?
Yes. I still can't believe how lucky I am to be able to be a part of this. Because I was allowed to show up as my Indigenous self and not be judged. You don't know how hard that is to find that in a workspace here in Alaska, or maybe even in the world. I was able to show up and be heard. I was able to talk freely and not have to guard my words or think that I was going to be sit here and judged by the content of my culture. To be able to talk about my worldview was so freeing. It was something that, you know, had been so suppressed out in the open. And to hear that even Colleen was interested in this, I was like, I'm not being judged in front of you. I can talk freely. I can talk about my culture. I can talk in Yupik. I didn't need to sit there and be code switching, thinking that I had to guard my words. And that was the greatest gift that I have received as an educator. And I've taught for many years, over 20 years. And this was the first time that I didn't have to take into account that I'm going to hurt somebody else's umyok. This is strictly from my Indigenous perspective. I show up as my Indigenous self. And I got here because I stopped asking Colleen and Tyler I asked them to stop decolonizing, because that was when I first sat down was I kept saying, can you decolonize this? Can you decolonize this? Can you decolonize this? And knowing that I cannot ask you to decolonize to my level was very freeing. So I just being able to show up as my Indigenous self and maintain my umyok with the universe that I know was so beautiful that I can actually sit here and talk with you. To me is so freeing. I wish my mom was still on this world to hear that I can talk like this, because this is something that you couldn't say outside your home. Not that these are secrets that need to be guarded, but that it was so, because of colonization, these were so suppressed. So suppressed that there's a huge gap in our history between the kids that were taken off and brought to boarding school and those of us that actually survived long enough to go to school in the villages with the advent of the Malihuj case. When we put on a potlatch now, it's these elders, these 75-year-olds that don't know the Qasriq protocol. And it's very simple, but they don't know it. So they're having to come to us, the younger generation, for clarification or for us to start potlatches. You know, when you gather with 1,000 people in your communities, you know, to be able to say the words that come from our elders that are no longer walking on this world, that are making some transition to come back, because we believe in reincarnation and our names are given. They're not gendered, so we get to inherit both male and female previous representations of that energy. That is important to me. That is probably the most important gift that I have received through Colleen and Tyler and through Reeb. And it actually makes me choked up because I get to even say it right now. I don't have to hide or whisper to my ilungak, to my cousins and say, you know, this is how it was. This is what was said. That's very freeing. Koyana ilaksuklo. Thank you, Kali, for allowing that.
Anna, Valerie, you're making me get all choked up too saying that, because I very much appreciate this partnership, and that's what I was hoping when we were able to first start this, that you could feel comfortable in that space, and that, yeah, we're able to work together in that way, and that you trust me to invite you to these other communities and groups that I'm a part of, and that I can say, these people are good people that you can share and who will listen. And so, yeah, it's just so appreciate your willingness to share and be open, because I know how much that has hurt you and so many others in the past, and how much you've been punished because of that. So I'm really glad that we are not in that space today. I wonder if you have suggestions for others who would like to work with other knowledge bearers within their communities or other communities, how they can approach that, or what was it that Tyler, Reap did that made you feel so comfortable in that space? Was it time? Was it certain approaches?
I think just listening, because I went into this with a lot of caution, and I felt like I was having to feel around. Not everybody is at the same awareness level. Not everybody meditates in the morning. Not everybody looks at this universe as our energy, where we're dwelling, and it's a special place. It's so special that I get to see my niece who had passed away. I get to see her on occasion. And I think that's such a gift. How do you not want to see your ancestors? How do you not want to see those that have gone on before us? See their energy representations. So my niece came back as this gorgeous little young lady. She actually has 10 representations currently on this planet that were born as babies. But I'm curious to see how many of them will take on her truth to power kind of attitude she had throughout this world. So I look forward to, getting to know these young girls as they grow, or these young boys. Even there is a young boy that was born. So I get to be a part of that experience, not just in her last energy form, but also as she transitions into the next one. So I know this is a lot, and I'm trying not to scare anybody, but this this view of our world means that all our inhabitants, not just our human, animal, and human ancestors, and human animal forms here on this planet, exist in this energy, as this energy level, but other animals as well. Our belief is that our animals give themselves to us. And I've seen examples of this. If I didn't feel like 100% that this is our belief, I wouldn't be sharing it with you. I've seen animals give themselves to hunters. I've seen sharing in action. I love that that's who we are as a people. And that includes the knowledge that was passed on. I think just being able to sit and listen to these words is huge for me. That means that your umyok, when I first came on, I said, "Huaka, are you ready to receive this information?" And that was the response that I got. So that's huge, just being able to listen and not judge what I have to say. That to me was the most important aspect, because I was very leery. And Colleen, I think you understood this. I was like, I can't believe you're listening to the words that I have to say. These were whispered words as I was growing up. Because how dare I listen to my culture and who we are as a people? How come I'm not taking on a colonizer mindset? How dare I even be Yupik? Was outside of the home. That's exactly who we are. So not to judge, but to allow that blossoming of a flower. And that's exactly how I've been feeling. I feel like I'm now blossomed, and I'm just like, and Colleen and Taylor were the sun, saying it was okay for me to be this. it was okay for me to experience and talk about myself in this energy form and it's so freeing. I've never, to me, that was very, I can't even stress how important that was. So being able to be present, wakak the moment, make certain that your mind is open, and keep in mind that there's very simple rules to not hurt anybody's umyo. Is huge, but I challenge everybody to try to make it through one day without hurting somebody's umyo. That's really hard. I don't have perfect days like that, but it's definitely a challenge. I'm sure when I was a little kid, just being a kid and not being judged for being a kid was awesome. But as you grow in this world, it you know it comes with certain restrictions. So, kuya na.
Ayana, Valerie, getting me all teared up now. You're so amazing. Um, so I think many of us are probably feeling a little emotional and really appreciating all the wonderful things that you're sharing with us. I'm wondering if you would be willing to sing the grounding song with us before we wrap up with some questions and finish for the day. I could use a little bit of grounding right now myself, I think, after all those lovely words you just said about me.
So, uno ko may kumento kamta. It's our way that we would present ourselves to the universe is done through Yuraq. Yuraq means, of course, not only to drum, sing, and dance, but it's our spirituality. So I don't have enough space. I'm working from home today. I don't have enough space to stand up and show you the motions, but I'd like to go through the song very briefly. And all we're doing is presenting ourselves. This is my energy today here on this world. This is my energy. Claim it for this world. No matter where I travel to, we used to travel with the dog team or on a sled. And you always make space for your neighbor. See if they come. And if they don't judge them for not coming. But you make space on the other side as well. See if they come. And if they don't, that's okay. You out that. Yuraq means that you are carrying that energy of your thoughts back to the universe. You give it right back to the universe. First verse is, I wonder where I'm going to sing my song, no matter where I travel. Make room for your neighbor. Make room for your neighbor. And then the drum solo, you're gathering your thoughts. This is your world. Take a good look at yourself. Take a good look at your world from every angle, from that angle and from that angle. Lay to rest. And then you get to start your day with a hop. And a hop is is like we say a hop and you pick, but I've heard different cries or kalgaks coming from the land of the cowboys. What's the cowboy cry?
Yeehaw!
Yeah. So we say ahap and you say,
Yeehaw!
that's right.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
I like woohoo too. Yanga, 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 yanga. kaya, kaya ngay. Pasok clear. Nanito ka ngay aduli ngay yang yang kaya Hayana, Yangai, Hayana, Yangai, Yanga, Hayange, Hayana, Hayana, Haya, Haya, Hayangai. Ahop. That is a song that we do every morning to claim our place, claim our energy as part of this universe. So it puts your mind in the right frame of mind, puts your umyak at ease and at peace so that you can go through this day at one with the universe. You know your path. And you're ready for that. So you clear your mind and now you have your purpose. Any questions?
Koyana, Valerie, yes, please. Questions, comments, free to use the raise hand function or put in the chat. Amber.
Hi, I'll be quick. I said it in the chat, but I just wanted to vocalize, Valerie, thank you so much for what you're representing here today. This adds another layer of my understanding here as a learner and how important climate literacy is, environmental awareness and justice is. And my experience as a African-American repatriating back to Africa to bring these things and this knowledge here. As you can see, we're sitting in the dark, more figuratively and literally. So teaching people who have this rooted in them, their spirituality and how important it is and how it impacts the environment and increases their knowledge and getting back to the root and getting back to appreciating the elders who have solutions has been actually heartbreaking and also very inspiring at the same time. So thank you so much for that reminder today. We need it.
Koyana, thank you for listening.
Carrie.
Yeah, I want to echo what Amber just said. And I also want to add that I want to thank you because I know a lot of time as educators, we wonder how is it possible to include something as complex as Indigenous ways of knowing in education, where there are already so many different things that must be included. And just reminding us that it's not so complex, right? There are a lot of very simple, easy, accessible ways to include these ideas in all aspects of curriculum, not just climate change, that don't have to, complicate things for anyone. And I think it's a very valuable reminder. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Carrie and Amber. Frank.
Colleen and Valerie, thank you so very much for sharing everything with us and your partnership and your friendship. Deeply moving. And so one of the things we're working on in the government now is this updating the climate literacy guide. And we knew when we started that one of the challenges that we face with climate is our worldview. Our worldview is one of the biggest things that is causing all of so many different problems, including climate change. And so education is part of the process of changing your worldview. But we didn't get that right in 2009. And so I invite you and to participate in that process of trying to re-envision what that means and to improve our ability to describe what is the educational change that we need in order to get the climate in a better place for all of us. So, you know, I'm moved and appreciative of the partnership and the friendship and the unique teachings today. So thank you. But I would like to see if we could share that more widely.
Well, Frank, I'll make sure I share that information with Valerie. I don't think she's on the listserv yet, but if she isn't, I'll get that to her. So I agree. We need more of the, I mean, you hear me, I think I say it every week, more Indigenous voices. How can we do more? How can we be better? Yeah.
I agree. Oh, I'm just going to jump in. I didn't raise my hand though. Is that all right? Yeah, I think this is so great. We've done some partnerships on the clean education side to try to bring more Indigenous resources into the collection, and thinking about how we can, highlight resources that bring Indigenous viewpoints and Indigenous climate science into the education space, but we've really been missing that on the network side of things too, Colleen. So I agree, it's really nice to have more of that, and I'd love to have more voices and more thoughts about how we can do these kinds of partnerships. And as Carrie said, just some of the little things that we can do to try to bring that into our education practice work.
Thank you. I was glad that I was able to share some of the ways that it doesn't have to be complex. Yes, you can make it complex, but and some spaces it should be, but it does not have to be all of the time.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of teachers, you know, when they hear that they have to include it, it does sound complex and difficult, and providing a kind of simple access point for them, right? Something that can introduce them to it is really important to get them to then try those more complex things.
Yeah, I agree. Like Amber articulated so well, it's all part of climate and environmental education is an important part of it. Yeah. Okay, we have 1 minute left. Valerie, do you have any final thoughts from these questions, or anybody have that you'd like to share?
Just 2 words. Boyana, of course, means thank you, Boyana. And Ilak Subla means to have or invite my energy to be a part of your mentality and your day to day. So if when you put those 2 words together, it's Boyana Ilak Subla. Thank you for inviting me to be in a safe space. Even 2 years ago, I didn't think that this would be acceptable. So I really appreciate just for you allowing me to show up as my Indigenous self. And Koyana Kalin for giving me that space. It's so freeing. Koyana.
Diana, thank you for doing this virtually. We've done this a couple of times in person, and we weren't sure exactly how this was going to work without us all being able to get up and dance together, but I think we managed to still do it anyway. I appreciate that. So I think we're at 10:01. So I think Gina think we're ready to go. Koyana, thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And
Thank you so much.
we'll see you again soon.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Colleen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. That was great. We'll talk again soon.